Hi, today we're going to be learning about simplifying algebraic expressions by multiplying binomials with binomials. We're going to start off by looking at what we need to do to find the product of two binomials. When you are finding the product of two binomials, you need to multiply each term in the first set of brackets with each term in the second set of brackets. Let's have a look at an example here quickly. If you've got a plus b multiplied by c plus d, we're just going to write that a little bit expanded so you can see a little bit more easily what we're doing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the a, the first term in the first set of brackets, we're going to multiply it by each term in the second set of brackets. So I take the a and I multiply it by the c, and that gives me AC. I'm also going to take that a and multiply it by the d. So I take the a and I multiply by each of the terms in the second set of brackets, and that gives me plus AD. Then I'm going to go on to the next term in my first set of brackets. I'm going to do the exact same thing with it. I'm going to multiply it by the first term in the second set, and that gives me plus BC. And then I multiply it by the second term in the second set of brackets, and that gives me plus BD. So we take each term in the first set, and we multiply it by each term in the second set. Okay, so let's have a look at our first example for today. Here we've got, in the first set of brackets, 3x plus 2y, and we're multiplying that by 4x minus 5y in a second set of brackets. So let's have a look at how we would do this question. Okay, so I'm going to start off by taking the 3x and multiplying it by each term in the second set of brackets. So first I'm going to multiply by the 4x. Okay, and that gives me 3 times 4 is 12, and then x times x is x squared. Okay, so now I've done the first term multiplied by the first term in the second set of brackets. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but multiplying by the second term in the second set of brackets. Okay, so that's going to be 3x times negative 5y is negative 3 times 5 is 15, and x times y is xy. Okay, so now I've finished multiplying this first term in the first set of brackets. I've multiplied it by each term in the second set, so now I'm done with that one. Now I go on to the next term in that first set of brackets. I'm going to multiply it by the 4x, and that gives me 2y plus times 4x is positive 8xy. And then I'm going to multiply the 2y by the negative 5y, and that gives me negative 10y squared. Okay, so that's what we get when we do the multiplication. Now, once we've finished doing the multiplication, we then need to go and see if we can simplify it by adding our like terms and combining our like terms. So over here, I've got x squared. There are no other x squareds in this expression. Then I've got minus 15xy and my plus 8xy. Those are like terms. And then I've got minus 10y squared, which doesn't have a like term. So when I simplify this, I'm going to get 12x squared, and then negative 15xy plus 8xy gives me negative 7xy, and then I've got minus 10y squared at the end. Okay, so that's what we get for that example. So I'm going to give you a few that you're going to do for yourself. Here's the first one you're going to do. You've got x plus 1 multiplied by x plus 2. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this question. Okay, so let's go through that and see what you should have got. Right, so I'm going to start off by multiplying my first term with each term in the second set of brackets. So over here I'm going to multiply the x by the x, and that gives me x squared. Then I multiply the x by the 2, and that gives me plus 2x. Okay, so now I'm done with the first term in that first set of brackets. Now I'm going to go on to the second term in the first set of brackets. So now I'm going to be multiplying the 1 into the second set of brackets. So I've got 1 times x, which is plus 1x or just plus x, and then 1 times 2, which is plus 2. Okay, so that's what you should get when you do your multiplication. Now I need to go and check for any like terms. So I've got x squared over here, and there are no other x squareds. Then I've got plus 2x and plus x, and then I've got plus 2. So now I'm going to go and simplify this by combining those like terms. So I've got x squared, it's staying as it is because it didn't have any like terms. Then plus 2x and plus x gives me plus 3x, and then the plus 2 stays as it is as well. So that's what we should get for question A, x squared plus 3x plus 2. Right, let's go on to question B. We've got m minus 2 multiplied by m minus 7. Okay, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's see what you should have got. So first I'm going to take the m in the first set of brackets, I'm going to multiply it by each term in the second set of brackets. So I'm going to multiply the m by the m over here. That gives me m squared. And then I'm going to multiply the m by the minus 7, and that gives me minus 7m. Then I'm going to go on to the second term in my first set of brackets. So it's going to be negative 2 times m. That gives me negative 2m. And then negative 2 times negative 7 gives me positive 14. Okay, so that's what we should have got when you did the multiplication. Now we need to go and simplify our like terms. So the m squared is on its own. There are no like terms for that. Then I've got minus 7m and minus 2m. And then I've got the plus 14 on its own as well. Okay, so let's simplify that and collect our like terms and combine them. So I've got m squared. Then minus 7m minus 2m gives me negative 9m, and then the plus 14 stays as it is. So that's what we should have got for question B. Right, let's go on to question C. In question C, you've got 3x minus 5 multiplied by x plus 2. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that and see what you should have got. So first I'm going to multiply the 3x in the first set of brackets by each term in the second set of brackets. So it's 3x times x, and that gives me 3x squared. And then I've got 3x times 2, which is plus 6x. Then I'm going to go and multiply the negative 5 in the first set of brackets by each term in the second set. So it's first negative 5 times x is negative 5x, and then negative 5 times 2 gives me negative 10. Okay, so that's what you should have got when you did your multiplication. Now we're going to go and collect and combine our like terms. So first I've got 3x squared, then I've got plus 6x and minus 5x, and then I have minus 10 as well. Okay, so my like terms are just the 6x and the 5x. So the others are going to stay as they are. So it's 3x squared, then plus 6x minus 5x gives me plus x, and then minus 10. So that you should have got for question C. Now we're going to go on to question D. Here you've got 2a minus 1 times 3a plus 4. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that and see what you should have got. So first I'm going to multiply the 2a into the second set of brackets. So it's 2a times 3a. That gives me 6a squared. And then 2a times 4 is plus 8a. Then I'm going to go on to the second term in my first set of brackets, that's the minus 1. So I'm multiplying each of these by negative 1. So it's going to be negative 1 times 3a is negative 3a. And then negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. Okay, so then our like terms, we've got over here 6a squared. Then I've got plus 8a minus 3a. And then I've got minus 4. Okay, so when I combine those like terms, I'm going to end up with 6a squared. Then 8a minus 3a is plus 5a, and then minus 4. So that you should have got for question D. Now we're going to go to question E. In question E, you've got x minus 4y multiplied by x plus 5y. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this question. Okay, so let's go through that question. So first I'm going to multiply the x in the first set of brackets by each term in the second set. So I've got x times x, that gives me x squared. Then I've got x times positive 5y, that gives me plus 5xy. Then I'm going to multiply the second term by each term in the second set of brackets. So it's negative 4y times x, that's negative 4xy. And then negative 4y times 5y gives me negative 20y squared. Okay, so that's what you should have got when you multiplied out. Now we're going to go and combine our like terms. So I've got x squared over there. Then I've got positive 5xy and negative 4xy. And then I've got minus 20y squared. Okay, so when I combine those like terms, I get x squared. And then 5xy minus 4xy is plus xy, and then minus 20y squared. So that you should have got for question E. Now we're going to go on to question F. You've got 2a squared minus 3b multiplied by 5a squared minus 4b. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So first I've got 2a squared times 5a squared, that is 10a to the power of 4, and then 2a squared times negative 4b is negative 8a squared b. Then negative 3b times 5a squared is negative 15a squared b, and then negative 3b times negative 4b is positive 12b squared. So now we're going to go and collect our like terms. So over here I've got 10a to the power of 4. There are no like terms for that. Then negative 8a squared b minus 15a squared b, those are like terms. So negative 8 minus 15 is negative 23, and then a squared b. And then the plus 12b squared is going to stay as it is. So that's what you should have got for question F. Now we're going to go on to question G. You've got x squared minus 2x multiplied by x plus 3. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question quickly. So we've got x squared times x first. That gives us x cubed. Then x squared times positive 3 is plus 3x squared. Then I've got negative 2x times x. That's minus 2x squared. And then negative 2x times positive 3 is minus 6x. Okay, so now we've done our multiplication. Now we're going to go and collect our like terms. So I've got x cubed is the only x cubed, so it stays as it is. Then 3x squared minus 2x squared gives me plus x squared. And then minus 6x stays as it is because it's the only x. Okay, so that you should have got for question G. Now we're going to go on to question H. In question H, you've got x plus 1/3 multiplied by x plus 2/3. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. And in this one, we've got fractions to deal with, so you need to be careful about that. But first, we just need to be multiplying the x times the x, and that gives us x squared. Okay, then when we multiply the x by the 2/3, it's the same as when you multiply x by 2, you just put the 2 in front of the x. So it's going to be 2/3 x. Okay, so it's going to be 2/3 and then x like that, where the 2/3 is our coefficient. Then I've got 1/3 times x, so that works the same. So that's going to be plus 1/3 x. And then I'm going to be multiplying over here the 1/3 by the 2/3. Now, if you look at it, if I were to write it like this over here, we've got 1/3 times 2/3. I can't cancel anything out there. So I'm just going to multiply the top by the top, and that gives me 2 over 3 times 3, which is 9. So that's going to be 2. That's plus 2 over 9. Okay, so now that's what you should get when you multiply out. Now we have to go and simplify by collecting and combining our like terms. So I've got x squared, which is going to stay as it is. Then 2/3 x plus 1/3 x. I'm adding 2/3 and 1/3. So it's plus. Then they have the same denominator already. So it's 2 plus 1 is 3 over 3. The denominator stays the same. And then the x still stays the same because I'm still just collecting like terms like normal. Okay, so it's 2/3 plus 1/3 x, which is 3/3 x, plus 2 over 9. But now you should know that 3/3 we can simplify, and 3 goes in there once, 3 goes in there once, leaving us with 1x. which is just x. So it's x squared plus x plus 2 over 9. So that's what you should have got for question H. Right, now we're going to go on to squaring a binomial. Okay, so when we're squaring a binomial, it means we have something like this. We have a plus b in brackets, and then that is being squared. Okay, now remember, that actually means a plus b multiplied by a plus b. When you're squaring something, it means that you're multiplying it by itself. Okay, so if we were to work this out in a normal way, like what we were just doing, we would say a times a, and that gives us a squared. Then we have a times b, which gives us ab. Then we have b times a, which gives us ab again. And then we have b times b, which gives us plus b squared. Okay, now if we collect our like terms, we get a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And this is always going to happen, that your middle two terms will be the same as each other, meaning that you're going to end up with 2ab or 2 of whatever they are, because when you're squaring a binomial, then you're always going to end up with the middle two terms being the same because you're multiplying the same bracket by itself. Okay, and so we've got a plus b squared is equal to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So there is a quicker way of working this out without having to do all of the multiplication first and then simplify and collect our like terms and combine them. We can go straight to the answer if we know the way it works out. Okay, so let's have a look at the method that we're going to follow when we're squaring a binomial. Okay, so when we're squaring a binomial, the first thing you should do is you need to square the first term. So we take that a and we square it, or whatever that first term is, and we square it. And that will always give us a positive value, because whenever you square something, it will always be positive. Okay, then the second term that you're going to end up with, you'll always end up with 3 terms. When you're squaring a binomial, you'll always end up with 3 terms. The second term is going to be the result of multiplying the 2 terms together. So we multiply the 2 terms together and then we double it, because like you saw on the previous slide, when you are squaring a binomial, you're going to end up with your 2 middle terms being the same as each other. And so when we add it, it's the same as doubling one of them. Okay, so we multiply them together. We have a times b, and we double that. So that gives us 2ab. And then for our last term, we're going to work it out by squaring the last term in the brackets. And that will also always be positive, the same as the first term. So this will always be positive, this will always be positive, and the middle term will be either positive or negative depending on what the signs are inside our brackets. Okay, so let's go and have a look at our first example where we're going to be using this. So in this example, we've got 4x minus 5y, and we're squaring that binomial. Okay, so let's have a look at how we would do this question. Okay, so first of all, because I'm squaring it, I know that I could write it out as 4x minus 5y multiplied by 4x minus 5y and multiply it out the way we were doing when we were multiplying 2 binomials by each other. Okay, so that is an option. That's always an option if you want to do it that way. But you don't need to do it that way. You can use the shortcut, which is to say, because I'm squaring, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first term, I'm going to square it. So I square the 4, that gives me 16. I square the x, and that gives me x squared. Okay, so I square the first term. Then for my middle term, I'm going to multiply these together and then double it. So 4x times negative 5y is going to be negative, okay, because it's a positive times a negative, so it's negative. 4 times 5 is 20, and I must double that because there would be 2 of them. So it's going to be 40, and then the x and the y. Okay, because it would be negative 20 xy and another negative 20 xy, giving me negative 40 xy. So for the middle term, I multiply them together and I double it. And then for my last term, I'm going to take the second term in my bracket and I'm going to square it. And that will always give me a positive answer. So it's going to be plus, then 5 squared is 25, and then y squared. Okay, so that's what you should get when you square 4x minus 5y. So now I'm going to give you a few that you're going to do for yourself. Here's the first one. For question A, you've got x plus y in brackets squared. Let's give you 30 seconds for this question. Okay, so let's go through that quickly and see what you should have got. So first, for my first term, I'm going to take the first term in the brackets and I'm going to square it. So that's going to be x squared. Then for the second term, I take the two terms and I multiply them together. So it's x times y is xy, and I double it. And because this is positive over here, it's going to be plus 2xy. So it's x times y is xy, and I double that, giving me 2xy. Okay, then I'm going to take my second term in the brackets and I'm going to square it to get my third term over here. So this is going to be plus y squared, and that's always going to be positive over there. This one over here is going to be positive or negative depending on what signs I've got in my brackets. Okay, so that's what you should have got for question A. Now we're going to go on to question B. In question B, you've got m minus n in brackets squared. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question quickly. So for my first term, I'm going to take the first term in the brackets, which is the m. I'm going to multiply that by itself or square it. So that gives me m squared. Then I'm going to multiply the two terms together. So that's m times negative n is negative mn. And I double that, giving me negative 2mn. And then I'm going to take the second term in the bracket and I'm going to square it. And that becomes positive because whenever you square anything, it always becomes positive. So it's positive n squared. So that we should have got for question B. Right, question C. We've got in brackets a minus 5 squared. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question quickly and see what you should have got. So over here, I've got a, which I need to square, so that gives me a squared. Then I'm going to multiply the two terms together and double it. So it's a times negative 5 is negative 5a, and if I double that, I get negative 10a. And then negative 5 squared is positive 25. Right, so that's what you should have got for question C. Now we're going to go on to question D. In question D, you've got 3b plus 2 in brackets squared. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Let's go through that and see what you should have got. So first I'm going to square the 3b, and that gives me 9b squared. Then I multiply them together, so that's 3b times 2 is 6b, and then I double it, that gives me 12b, and it's positive, so it's plus 12b. And then I'm going to square the 2, so it's going to be plus 4. Okay, so that you should have got for question D. Now we're going to go on to question E. Here you've got 4x plus 9 in brackets squared. Let's give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So here we've got 4x that we need to square. That gives us 16x squared. Then we need to multiply the 4x and the 9 together. That gives me 36x, and then I need to double that, giving me 72. So it's going to be plus 72x is positive because 4x times positive 9 is positive. And then I'm going to square my 9. That gives me plus 81. So that's what you should have got for question E. Right, now we're going to go on to question F. Here we've got 3x plus 8y in brackets squared. I'll give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So we've got 3x, which we need to square, and that gives us 9x squared. Then 3x times 8y is 24xy, and it's positive. Then I'm going to double that, so that gives me plus 48xy. And then I'm going to square my 8y, and that gives me plus 64y squared. So that's what you should have got for question F. Right, we're going to go on to question G. Here you've got a cubed minus 3a in brackets squared. So give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. So over here, I'm going to square my a cubed. Now you have to remember your rules for exponents when you do this, that when you're squaring a power, you need to multiply the exponent by the exponent outside. So we're going to be multiplying the 3 by 2. That gives us a to the power of 6. And then I've got a cubed times negative 3a is negative 3a to the power of 4, which I need to double. That gives me negative 6a to the power of 4. And then I'm going to square my negative 3a, and it becomes positive 9a squared. So that's what you should have got for question G. Okay, now we're going to go on to question H. Here we've got 5x cubed y squared minus 2x squared y cubed in brackets squared. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this question. Okay, so let's go through that and see what you should have got. Right, so first I'm going to square my first term over here. So that's going to be 5 squared is 25. Then I square the x cubed, that gives me x to the power of 6. And I square the y squared, that gives me y to the power of 4. Okay, so that's my first term done by squaring the 5x cubed y squared. Next, I need to multiply these together. So it's a positive times a negative is negative. Then 5 times 2 is 10, and I double it, that gives me 20. Then x cubed times x squared is x to the power of 5, and y squared times y cubed is y to the power of 5. And then I'm going to go for my last term and square this. That becomes positive. Then 2 squared is 4. X squared is x to the power of 4, and y cubed squared is y to the power of 6. So that's what you should have got for question H. Right, now we're going to go on to multiplying binomials that result in the difference of two squares. Okay, so let's have a look at an example over here. So when you have a set of brackets like this, where the two brackets look the same as each other, except one has got a plus and one has got a minus, something special is going to happen. So let's have a look at what happens when we multiply these out. So first I'm going to multiply my a and my a, like I do when I do normal multiplication of binomials. I multiply the first term by each term in the second bracket. So I have a times a is a squared, then a times negative b is negative ab. Then I go on to the second term that I'm going to multiply into my second set of brackets. So b times a, and it's positive b times a, is positive ab, and then b times negative b is negative b squared. So now if I simplify this, let's see what happens. So I get a squared, then my minus ab and my plus ab are going to cancel each other out because they are like terms and they're the same except for the plus and minus. And then I've got my minus b squared. So a plus b multiplied by a minus b is equal to a squared minus b squared. A square minus another square. So it's the difference, remember difference means minus, it's the difference of two squares. Okay, so like I said, when we multiply these binomials together, we end up with the difference of two squares. Okay, so now just like when we were doing squaring binomials, there is a quicker way of doing this without having to go and do all of the multiplication and then cancelling out. We can use a shortcut for this one as well. So let's have a look at what our shortcut looks like. Okay, so first of all, when we are multiplying binomials that are the same, except for the sign in the middle. So over here you can see you have a plus b and a minus b. So they're the same except for the plus and the minus. One has a plus and the other one has a minus. When you are multiplying binomials like this together, the first thing you're going to do to get your first term is you're going to multiply the two first terms together. The first term in the first set of brackets and the first term in the second set of brackets. You're going to multiply those together. Okay, so you multiply the first terms together. Then this big gap over here, remember that is going to happen because we had two terms in the middle, but they cancelled each other out. So the second thing you need to remember is that the middle terms will always cancel each other out. When you are multiplying brackets that look like this, where they're the same except for the plus and the minus in the middle terms are going to cancel each other out. So you don't need to write anything there. So then you're going to go straight on to the last term, which you get by multiplying the last term in each set of brackets together. So I have positive b multiplied by negative b. And because one of these will always be positive and one will always be negative, you will always get a negative term over here. So it's always going to be negative. Okay, so let's go and have a look at an example where we're going to do this. So in this example, we've got in brackets x plus 5 and then x minus 5. Okay, so let's go and have a look at how we would do this question. Okay, so first of all, you need to look at the brackets. You need to recognize that the two binomials are the same except for the plus and the minus. Okay, and that means we can use this method over here, the shortcut. So I can say, to get my first term, I'm going to multiply the first term in each of the two brackets together, and that gives me x squared. So I'm multiplying these two together to get x squared. Then I'm going to skip multiplying those two, which gives me negative 5x, and these two, which gives me positive 5x, because they're going to cancel each other out. So I don't need to do that. I can skip it, and I can go straight on to multiplying the last term with the last term, and that gives me positive 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. So when you have two sets of brackets where they're the same except for the plus and the minus in the middle, then you just multiply the first terms in the two sets of brackets and the last terms in the two sets of brackets, and you don't worry about doing the other multiplication because they're going to cancel each other out anyway. Okay, so that's how you would do that example. So now I'm going to give you a few that you're going to do for yourself. Here's the first one that you're going to do. You've got x plus y multiplied by x minus y. I'll give you 30 seconds for this question. Okay, so let's go through this question and see what you should have got. Okay, so first, you need to see that these two sets of brackets, the two binomials, are the same as each other except for the plus and the minus, which means we can use our shortcut. So I'm going to have x times x, giving me x squared. And then I'm not going to multiply the x and the negative y. I'm not going to multiply the y and the x because they're going to cancel each other out. And then I'm going to multiply the y and the negative y, and that gives me negative y squared. So for this one, you should have got x squared minus y squared. Okay, now let's go on to the next one. For question B, we've got x plus 7 and x minus 7 that you're multiplying together. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. Right, so first, I look at the two binomials and I see they are the same except for the plus and minus, which means I can use my shortcut. So I can say x times x is x squared. And then I skip to saying 7 times negative 7 is minus 49. So that you should have got for question B. Right, let's go on to question C. We've got 2a minus 1 multiplied by 2a plus 1. I'll give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So first, the two binomials are the same except for the minus and the plus over here. So I'm going to be using my shortcut. So I can say 2a times 2a is 4a squared. And then negative 1 times positive 1 is minus 1. So that you should get for question C. Right, let's go on to question D. Here you've got 7a minus 8b multiplied by 7a plus 8b. Give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. So over here, the two binomials are the same except for the plus and the minus. So I'm going to be using my shortcut. 7a times 7a is 49a squared. And then negative 8b times positive 8b is minus 64b squared. So that you should get for question D. Okay, let's go on to question E. Here you've got 5xy plus 2 multiplied by 5xy minus 2. I'll give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question quickly. So here, once again, the two binomials are the same except for the plus and the minus, so I can use my shortcut. So that's going to be 5xy times 5xy. 5 times 5 is 25. X times x is x squared, and y times y is y squared. So you should have had 25x squared y squared, and then 2 times negative 2 is minus 4. So that you should get for question E. Now as we go on to question F. Here we've got 3x squared minus 4x multiplied by 3x squared plus 4x. I'll give you 30 seconds for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question quickly. So here, once again, the two binomials are the same except for the plus and the minus. So I'm going to use my shortcut. 3x squared times 3x squared is 9x to the power of 4. And then negative 4x times positive 4x is minus 16x squared. So that's what you should get for question F. And then question G, we've got 8a cubed b plus 3ab squared multiplied by 8a cubed b minus 3ab squared. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this question. Okay, so let's go through that question. So first, if you look at the two sets of brackets, the two binomials are the same except for the plus and the minus. So I'm going to use my shortcut, 8a cubed b times 8a cubed b. So first I've got 8 times 8 is 64. Then a cubed times a cubed is a to the power of 6. And b times b is b squared. And then I'm going to jump to multiplying the last term in each bracket. So I've got 3ab squared multiplied by negative 3ab squared. So that's minus. 3 times 3 is 9. A times a is a squared, and b squared times b squared is b to the power of 4. So that's what we should have got for question G. Now we're going to go on to the last one for today, which is question H. Here we've got x minus 3 over 5 times x plus 3 over 5. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this question as well. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. Right, so in this one, it's the same as the other ones we've had. We have a binomial multiplied by another binomial. They're the same except for the plus and the minus. So I'm going to be using my shortcut. So it's going to be x times x is x squared. And then we've got a minus times a plus, that's minus. And now we're multiplying these fractions together. So I've got 3 over 5 times 3 over 5. Now if I multiply those together, nothing's going to be able to cancel. So I'm going to multiply the top together, and that gives me 9 over the bottom together. 5 times 5 is 25. So for that question, you should have got x squared minus 9 over 25. Okay, now I just want to let you know that the shortcuts that I've shown you for squaring a binomial or for multiplying binomials that are the same except for the plus and the minus, resulting in the difference of two squares, those shortcuts are things that will be helpful to you, but they're not essential. If you forget how to do them, then you can use the method that we did in the beginning of the lesson, which is when you're multiplying binomials together, that you multiply each term in the first set of brackets by each term in the second set of brackets, and that will always work. So even if you forget those shortcuts, then you can still use that normal method of multiplying a binomial by a binomial, and that will always work for you. And that is how we simplify algebraic expressions, by multiplying binomials by binomials. Now that we've learned the concepts in this lesson, it's important to practice. If you haven't already got the worksheet that goes with this video, you can find it by clicking on the link in the description below. The worksheet comes with an extra exercise full of questions for you to work on to master the concepts covered in this lesson. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button so that others can benefit from it too. Also, be sure to subscribe so that you can easily find my other lessons, and hit the bell so that you will get notified about lessons as I upload them.